Every morning in the quiet, I fill my cup with water and see as a warrior seeking pleasure, instead of as a guy seeking the river, which has been flowing freely for decades, teaches me truth, filling every available space without question or hesitation. That's precisely how I remember mastery being thought of. Represented authority when mornings began with forms so precise they could be divided. At night's end, atoms and muscles beg for forgiveness with 10,000 kicks and 10,000 punches that aim for perfection in repetition, exhibit the same hunger. In my opinion, your desire to eliminate uncertainty and master every variable become indestructible. But listen carefully, because what I'm about to disclose will cost me years of blood and find it difficult to understand the precise cause we battle for throughout our life amidst ambiguity and confusion. Our greatest strength, not our enemy, is the unknowable nothingness. Master patiently waits for us to stop thrashing against its currents during the quiet hours of my dojo, dispelled all of my assumptions about power. True mastery isn't about controlling chaos, entails blending in with it, much like water can shape itself into anything. Vessel, yet powerful enough to break mountains. You can feel the internal struggle. Do you not always struggle to maintain the order you want and the anarchy you want? Follows like a shadow, and we've been educated by society to put up obstacles to unpredictability, to chart every route and plan every breath. But have you ever witnessed a single leaf fall exactly where it was? I'm not here to teach you any new forms or techniques, as you might expect. Learn this pattern till your bones ache, because I'm going to show you somewhere far away additional worthwhile methods to turn your greatest self into your most profound instructor. The art of appreciating chaos is not found in old scrolls or secrets. Techniques, it exists in the instant before action, in the spaces between heartbeats. Are you prepared to unlearn the foundational knowledge you acquired in the lead up to the storm? Strength after discovering that true power comes not from resistance, but rather from so pay close attention and surrender to the very thing you have spent your life resisting. Friend, because what follows has the power to completely change your understanding of mastery. I find our insatiable desire for control to be the most fascinating aspect of our nature. Our surroundings are like a man attempting to hold on to a mist. The more firmly he does so, and it slips out of his hands. Every day, I watch as new students immerse their bodies in my quad, rigid as stone, thinking that tension is the source of power. They engage in behaviors like accountants who try to turn the art of combat into a continuous research, is always searching for the best approach or unmatched system, that one answer to every question. Let me tell you what I've observed over the years of stating that the more skilled a martial artist is, the longer they are usually imprisoned. Are competent people who have built fortresses, method castles, and theoretical armies. Practice responses, but warfare is actually complete mayhem. As if preparing for a storm, I remember seeing two types of fighters on the streets of Hong Kong. Those who received instruction practiced and refined their technique, moving like machines. Like the wind, the street warriors moved with unexpected precision and roughness. Of course, neither side truly understood how disruptive the street could be. Combatants were at least dancing with it, even if they didn't realize it. What will really get you thinking is seeing children play unsupervised. System without presumptions. Only a simple response. As soon as they swiftly adapt, they don't have to think about correct technique because they move naturally in their innocent relationship. They exhibit something that most martial artists practice in chaos for decades, in chaos for decades. We've been taught that chaos is hampered by unpredictability, as you can see. It is necessary to eliminate the notion that mastery is synonymous with control. But what if I told you that if your convictions are holding you back, what if the real power is not inconsiderate like water in a storm, controlling turmoil while blending with it. It turns into the wind rather than resisting the lightning. It is chaos in its purest form, and it does not fear it. It reflects it. Greatest form, I'm not here to teach you a new system or technique. More beneficial than polishing, I'm here to teach you how to unlearn your fear of chaos, because once you understand this completely, each minute of doubt becomes a portal to strength you never realized you had, thanks to the seed I'm sowing in your head. Right now, simple yet significant. What if chaos isn't your my friend? I'll tell you about actual turmoil. What if you've never avoided a better teacher? Friend, because chaos is merely the onset of something more profound. Order, when people talk about chaos, they imagine a state of chaos in which everything is about to blow up in their face. When they see a leaf moving uncontrollably, they refer to it as dancing in the wind. They randomly assign labels to the waves they see crashing onto the beach. Unpredictable, yet during my fiercest conflicts, I discovered something absurd on that there is no such thing as underlying harmony or superficial masks in a real struggle. There is no choreography, no screenplay, and no set patterns. Each moment flows into the next. This is not the kind of chaos that occurs when water finds its way down a mountain. This is real chaos, disarray but a higher order that we haven't yet found. I remember my first street fight in Hong Kong, where I was expected to employ specific tactics by everyone. I ended up moving instead of creating the standard combat dance. I reacted without thinking or poor planning, and my body understood what the mind has yet to recognize, that true chaos is the best response to without the stress of expectation. Watch how a group of birds changes their course in the sky without a leader, signal, or command. But they keep moving as first. Changed everything for me. Rather than trying to predict what my opponent would do next, I started to feel their energy blending with the current flow. But this goes much beyond simple conflict. Think about how you navigate a crowded roadway, my buddy, and adjust your words accordingly. In discussion, how can you grab a falling thing before your mind even realizes it? There is real chaos at work, and these instances of perfect responsiveness are vanishing. You're overanalyzing. Market crashes, relationship changes, and career routes are all sensed by your body. Because they take unexpected turns and are out of our control, we call these events chaotic. Yet what if these are simply life's inherent flow, such as water discovering new, instead of your enemy plotting to bring you down? True turmoil is life itself exposing you. Once you understand everything completely, more opportunities will present themselves. Shifts, you start to take action and stop trying to impose your way on every circumstance. I learned to deal with life's flow from combat. But the secret to my life isn't coping with chaos, but rather being aware of the fact that you are a part of it, flowing with it, and having become it in every. When I went to a typical school, I saw that all of the students were in the same line. Punch block that does the same movements hundreds of times in perfect rose kick, like the equipment in a factory, giving the impression of expertise. I used to believe it as well. Stand in a horse stance and spend hours drilling a single punch 10,000 times. Learn each form until it becomes second nature to you. But let me suggest something that permanently damaged my comprehension when I was just beginning to teach. Had a student at the advanced level with perfect technique. Well, one day I took him to the spar with an untrained street fighter. He's quite beautiful. Ineffective strategies caused his perfect shapes to shatter. Because of his years of methodical preparation, he was prepared for everything. Nonetheless, as you can see, traditional training is your activity may seem perfect, like learning to swim by practicing strokes on dry land. During a storm, but when you throw the swimmer into the sea, you discover the ways in which your real life forms are different from your dojo's safety photos are not FF in struggling, and these shapes cannot provide you with the same nourishment as an image of food. Rehearsing the same maneuver while unaware of it is the worst kind of incarceration. It gets you ready for actual fighting. You're practicing for that one, instead of battling 10,000 times. There is never a perfect time for a fight, and they are always messy. They are similar to trying to catch lightning in your hands as soon as you appear to have it all figured out. Yet I remember waking up myself. Years of traditional training had given me speed and power technique, but in real fight I found I disposed of everything and responded to everything in a way I had never done before. Instant of life and freshness, when I recognized that you should have been ready for the upheaval with all of your training over the years, not shield you from it, which is why I suggest not becoming entangled in take one shape, change it, make your own, and let it grow like water. In the beginning, these training wheels are useful for creating strict training, but in the end, those very things become the things that are keeping you from reaching true mastery, which isn't about perfection, gaining proficiency in giving up control. Let me take you back to my real schooling began on Hong Kong rooftops, not in the coons with their polished surfaces and expertly crafted shapes, but in the midst of the street's pure anarchy. About 3 minutes on a rooftop taught me more than 3 years in any field. I found that fighting around the school's water tanks and laundry lines isn't. It is a dialogue intended to be spoken that was written in the language of pure poetry. My gut tells me that everything changed after a confrontation with a local gang leader. Everyone expected traditional methods because he was twice my size and known for his aggressive efficiency. Rather, I noticed that I was reacting using techniques I had never taught and moving in ways that didn't have names, and I wasn't practicing martial arts for 3 minutes. Locating them, every action motivated by necessity, every response designed from I thought I knew what anarchy was when Hollywood called. But I had not yet seen anything, brother, but they wanted to put me in a box to make play. The ethereal, silent Asians had their own formulas, tactics, and scripts. They asserted that this is how stars are made, but their legitimacy was just another kind of cage, so I located mine and inquired about the water it held. It held. They gave me a chance to show something real with every cliché they threw at me. Indeed, the genesis of Jeet Kune Do was not a moment of creation. It was a time when I gave in to the truth that I had been fighting against during that quiet. Observing my students struggle with rigid shapes in my gym, I realized that we to see what's already there. Jeet, we need new viewpoints, not new technique. Not because I was a master, but rather because I was willing to accept that mastery was an illusion. But during the famous challenge bout in Oakland, the last element came together. Mentioned it, but few understand how perfect my opponent's instruction was. I came with nothing after years of practicing a system he believed to be unbeatable. The battle lasted 3 minutes with an empty mind, and neither my speed nor strength won. Since real warfare is chaos in its most fundamental form, I realized that throughout those 3 minutes I'd been gaining knowledge of the ultimate kind, which has solidified into a single fact, is ignorant of the fact that it is existent and linked with water. This went beyond simply resisting the chaos. It went beyond that. Nevertheless, you can observe my journey through chaos, and this was about life itself. Taught me that style is only a term used to describe the cage we build to feel protected. In reality, what we call method is our attempt to produce something that is permanently, I learn how to adjust in Hollywood after moving to Hong Kong, but in I learned how to free myself and, subsequently, others by creating Jeet Kune Do. From the standpoint of style itself, my friend, have you ever truly examined bamboo during a tempest? Closely observing its eye, spent countless hours studying the natural world outside my home in Hong Kong when, rather than seek shelter during typhoons, I decided to study and observe the mighty oak. The powerful Western insignia would break and fall, yet the bamboo danced with the chaos in my garden, where I planted 2 oak trees, and bamboo students would come expecting me to praise the oak's strong trunk. Firm stance, the pinnacle of what they considered to be strength. Instead, I would gesture to the bamboo and tell them to calm down. Similar to bamboo, at first, people were unaware of how this swaying, bending plant could be stronger than the mighty oak. But what matters most is that the oak can withstand wind, whereas bamboo bargains with it, and the oak stands up and proud amid strong winds. However, it becomes stronger through resistance and disobedience, so when the wind reaches, there is nothing the oak can do but break at that critical moment. Like many martial artists, the bamboo trained itself into a corner. But see how it behaves. Its strength isn't in fending off the wind, but the bamboo bends less when the wind is blowing harder. Because they don't struggle, resist, or have an ego, people perceive this as weakness. People often mistake humility for weakness, but after the strongest hurricane, this is what they overlook. The bamboo re-emerges unblemished and stronger than before during the most powerful storm. I danced with the wind, not against it, so this is more than just poetry, my friend. The fighter who puts in the effort is the one who is actually strong in combat, friend. The oak's a stubborn, unbending pride will eventually crumble. Yet the A fighter with the ability to bend like bamboo, without breaking, they can adapt without losing the flow of their roots. They couldn't be broken when I created Jeet Kune. Therefore, this fighter is unbeatable, was the main concept, not the strength of opposition, but the strength of shrewdly foregoing the strength of the adversary in favor of the authority of the lesson that the bamboo teaches us about adaptation is that true strength is found in accepting the storm rather than resisting it. Passing through it, becoming one with it, and transforming the storm into your strength. Remember that the bamboo bends not because it is weak, but because it recognizes this reality. The capacity to adapt without cracking or crumbling, without giving up control to move, without getting lost, is the ultimate power. Strength, not the ability to oppose, but the ability to resilience. Allow me to show you how to use these concepts, not in theory or philosophy, but practical methods you may begin using now. First, understand that water doesn't practice being loose. It simply is, but our brains need to be taught. Your first resource for rediscovering this state of nature is the water. Although force is not the primary focus, combat principles start with the basic punch. Let your fist fill the space like water and focus on the flow. Don't give up and try again when a telegraph is blocked. Instead, keep going. Like water, energy continues to flow, finding a new path below. Water quickly transforms to shatter structural elements when it hits a rock. With the 5 workouts I've made, start sparring with yaw. Instead of fighting blindness, eyelids are closed to detect energy, and the second switch leads mid-combination from a third party that responds to attacks without blocking use. Just the 4th technique for practicing inverted body movement. Breaking your patterns as soon as you see them is the 5th and most crucial stage. The first step to true combat freedom is developing the broken rhythm exercise. Start with a simple rhythm like 1-2, 1-2. Now deliberately halt the heart to the heartbeat, not haphazardly, but precisely 1-2 pauses. After 1 or 2 pauses, your opponent's mind will try to guess your rhythm. But like this is intentional, not chaotic for the sake of disorder. Water makes you erratic. Unpredictability and emotional content are what most training lacks. Don't just hit. Put your everything into it. What I mean by emotional content is I don't mean anger, but whole commitment to the here and now. Start off slowly using a single approach and pay attention to everything, not just the motion, but your spirit, your goal, and your total commitment to that finally, at 1/4 speed, formless progressive sparring begins. Preset techniques merely move, respond, modify, and accelerate progressively, but never at the expense of awareness. When you hit full speed, you'll find yourself using techniques you've never employed before. These methods, which have their roots in the moment like water, aren't about picking up new skills. They're about getting back to the natural and getting rid of the artificial. Like the bamboo we discussed in each exercise, the flow that exists within you is not to improve your ability to think, but to get rid of stiffness. Ideas, but to stop thinking altogether. Employ these methods not as separate exercises, yet as aspects of the same reality that your formlessness, your greatest form of nothingness, is your greatest fullness, which is the ability to change is your greatest constant, my friend. The principles that we've discussed go much beyond martial arts. In my personal experience, I discovered that allow me to illustrate how the same rules that govern combat also govern every aspect of life, alters everything, including your innermost thoughts and business decisions. In professional situations, most people act like stiff oak trees. Rigid plans defying the market produce methods that cannot be changed, moves. But people who truly flourish move like water, according to my film negotiation. Instead of merely staying firm, I moved around for contracts in Hollywood. When the system handed me cliched jobs, I chose not to challenge it directly. Instead, I established my own production company, found new channels, and wrote my own responsibilities. Remember that water can either flow, or you must be able to do both in the corporate world. Take a look at how most people handle their careers. They make rigid 5-year plans with rigid objectives, but life is never simple, much like fighting a war. Those that are successful keep on track, but modify their approach accordingly. My first approach when I started teaching in America was a set of traditional schools, yet I observed that I evolved and altered rather of following a plan. Jeet Kune Do emerged by being open to reality at this stage. Interpersonal relationships are where the knowledge is most noticeable. Attempts to impose control in an attempt to make things permanent are the root cause of most significant relationship problems. With my wife Linda, I learned that love, like water, needs to be free to flow. Because you can't control it, it forces itself into shapes when you try to place it in one. If you lose it, your relationships will change without losing their core. Your essence, people, flows without you straying from your path of self-improvement. Often adopts a growth-oriented approach like force chipping away and shaping stone to create a pre-made form. But true development is more like caring for a garden where you use situations for growth, but you remain open to what naturally emerges during my training. I never forced my body into techniques, but by listening to it, I learned how to let it happen organically. The art of living like fighting isn't about reining in its impulses. Determining what matters and articulating it is the key to getting more. Being sincere in business means knowing and expressing your true value. Being truthful instead of assuming roles that aid in personal growth is what it means to be honest in relationships. Recognizing your natural abilities rather than imposing artificial. It's important to remember that life will test you, not how well you plan. But your ability to flow will depend on how effectively you adapt to the inevitable turmoil, which is like water. Circumvent obstacles to find opportunities to create new paths while aged ones are blocked, and, more importantly, to maintain your core morals while let me share my personal evolution with you, assuming whatever form life requires. At one point, friend, I thought, you're trying to find perfection by control, believing that mastery entailed eliminating uncertainty. I would spend hours perfecting a single motion because I believed that if I could just control my breathing and every muscle, I would find the answer I sought before realizing that I was a turmoil. My body was perfect. My strategies were precise, and I was a prisoner of perfection. Sharp a weapon, however, there was a hole in I vividly recall how frustrating it was when all of that skill in actual combat was reduced to a cage. Fury when things didn't go as planned, and every unexpected move an opponent made seemed like a personal blow to. I was the strong but fragile oak tree during my training. Fighting against the most unexpected turning point was when I got into a fight. Lost my balance, which is not something someone with my expertise should have experienced. But in that tumultuous time, when all of my perfect methods were removed, I was not conscious of it, but I moved away with an efficiency I had never known. Wasn't planned, it was just an honest response to reality, and that's when everything changed. I realized that true mastery was not about controlling chaos. What I was doing was like water adapting, and it was about merging with it. I was able to observe since my mind was instantly clear of presumptions in any situation. Opportunities where I used to simply see obstacles to fighting, but now it's simple. Since it was easier, but because I stopped fighting the reality, the benefits were greater. My films got better because I stopped trying to choreograph every scene and instead started to let things happen organically. My capacity to adapt led to the strengthening of my connections rather than control. My teaching evolved as I stopped trying to mold students into a desired look and started helping them figure out their own course. This transformation taught me that rather than a lack of self-control, our greatest weakness is an addiction to. When I finally came to terms with chaos, I found a strength that no amount of, through controlled practice, my abilities became more effective, not because they were more perfect, but I was able to understand them better because they were more sincere. Not because I acquired new information, but I was able to identify what was already there, because the Bruce Lee you see in every movie now was born out of this knowledge. Every lesson I learn is based on the fact that I am not more gifted than I was before. Because of this adjustment, I feel more alive and free rather than more constrained. Instead of strength coming from weakness, chaos offers strength from inflexible strength. I'm giving you flowing power, which is more than just a fighting philosophy. It's written, see how existence is interwoven with the universe itself. Operating scientists employ the concept of quantum uncertainty, where the very process of trying to doesn't the nature of things change as we quantify them. Fight the moment you try to predict and fix a situation that you have already changed. It considers a river's natural patterns without challenging its path. It simply moves, cutting through by determining the least challenging route. Quote, even though a tree's branches don't grow in a predictable way, mountains are nonetheless created. The laws of nature are not perfectly followed by even your own heartbeat. It exhibits a slight degree of instability despite being very regular, which is essential to its modern physics, tells us something important about health at the most basic level. Relationships, not solid, unchangeable materials, make up the universe. When I say be like water, I don't mean the constant flow of interactions between energy. I'm describing the fundamental features of reality with metaphors. This was acknowledged by ancient Chinese philosophers who talked about the Tao, the essential principle that keeps everything together, but they didn't see it as they saw it as a continuous dance between yin and yang, between chaos and order. It's not mysticism because quantum scientists also use this concept. When they talk about wave-particle duality in your own body, explain this fact. Your nervous system is not an always operating computer. Programs and responses are dynamic and always changing. The network adapts minute by moment when you strike someone without thinking that the systems you are accessing are so complex that no machine could replicate them. But they work perfectly when you stop trying to control them. All successful systems are built on the notion of adaptability. Nature does not include the most resilient and intelligent animals, but the system most susceptible to alteration is your immune system. By following predetermined guidelines, it learns, adjusts, and develops. We teach the similar concept at Jeet Kune Do. Rather of following predetermined protocols, the ability to swiftly adapt to any situation, including mine, which depends on these principles, try to grab it and control it, but it eludes them and allows it to flow under. Meditation transcends all boundaries and arises naturally. Thus, it's not about controlling your ideas. Giving up authority and allowing your natural awareness does not emerge from these separate ideas that coincide by accident. They are different manifestations of the same fundamental whether talking about biology, combat physics, or consciousness. The message remains the same. True power does not come from imposing control, but instead of blending in with the natural flow of let me give you the tools to begin your own journey toward reality, my buddy. They are more than just drills, and we will wrap up our discussion today rather than next week. The goal of each transformational gateway is to eliminate the artificial and return you to first. Your daily exposure to stress in your inherent state. Choose a consistent pastime. Work out every morning and change your if you eat with your right hand. Use your left because you'll be taking the same route to work. Choose a different route and allow the change to occur organically rather than orchestrating it. Rather than causing created chaos, the objective now is to become. This is your 3-step guide to embracing the inherent unpredictability of life. The first stage in uncertainty while making a decision is to reject your initial habitual response, step 2, instead of concentrating on figuring out the right answer. Carefully review step 3, review step 3. Several tactics, step 3. Pick the one that feels most it's not the safest way to survive, to make small decisions about what to eat and where first. Then gradually extend it to other important choices. Every 7 days, you have a sacred challenge to push yourself beyond your comfort zone. Something that unnerves you, instead of posing a deliberate danger hesitant, take a class on a subject you don't know much about, or slumps about. A stranger teaching someone a skill you're still learning isn't meant to help you become expert at it. The goal of these workouts is to get you back to where you were comfortable as a beginner. For your personal growth notebook, I want you to try something different. Don't write about your rather, write down your responses, whether they are successful or not. To be sure, when did you flow? When did you stop letting reality happen to you instead of embracing it? Judges look as though they are observing water as it finds its way, ultimately turning into pick a quiet spot. Start with a water container and spend 5 minutes there without see how you act and adapt if you think of yourself as water. Instantly to any container to see how it keeps its inherent qualities after taking any shape. Then consider its immediate nature when performing your daily duties. Simple adaptability, but remember that these aren't different exercises. On other days, you will practice each one through a different door in the same room. On other days, someone will call you more confidently. Therefore, rather than mastering the exercises, the goal is to accept their essence until they are no longer exercises at all. Start with just who you are by nature, not with all of them. For instance, pick the one that makes you feel both excited and lets you feel both excited. At the edge of development, where there is a subtle tension and a gentle fear, transformation takes place. Don't wait to begin until you fully understand. Comes from acting and acknowledging the inherent ambiguity that these actions will, my friend. Let me tell you what I see when I look at people. Potential, what you could be, not who you are now or what society thinks you can be, are when every limitation is removed. This isn't about reaching a final destination. It's about embracing an endless reaching your greatest potential is a journey, not a destination. Positions, titles, and belt rankings are just stepping stones, turning into water like lads in an endless ocean is what I mean. It is always changing, always altering, yet always completely imagine having such adaptability that no situation can surprise you, based on the notion that nothing can ever take you away from your true self. Hence, this journey never comes to an end. Because continuous perfection, not perfection, is what real potential is all about. Response to life in general, every high point I reached on my own path unveiled new each horizon's response prompted more questions. This isn't an indication of annoyance. It's even though the oak tree can reach its full height, life depends on water. Since water never stops flowing and is constantly evolving, it becomes you're like a brilliant jazz musician who has moved past fretting over notes and scales. You will move in your natural state. As you navigate life with spontaneous accuracy, your responses grow more accurate. It is common for intention and action to be indistinguishable. Reality, not because you have memorized every possible scenario, but rather because you have learned to adjust to any situation. This transcends martial arts or physical training to your thoughts, become a still pool that perfectly captures reality in every aspect. Your feelings are unhindered and flowing. They are neither suppressed, nor it's not rules or habits that cause your exaggerated behavior, but an immediate reaction. Currently, the goal of lifelong learning is not to increase one's knowledge, but rather to needing less resistance, less artificial tension, and less framework. You'll find that instead of adding approaches, you're simplifying. Having many tools isn't the greatest achievement, rather, it's being able to remember that the water doesn't try to fully adapt to whatever is going on. It is just powerful because it is completely self-contained. Being more fully who you are now, rather than turning into someone else, is what will allow you to reach your greatest potential. Every drop of water contains the essence of everything. Ocean, just as your potential is already fully realized, our effort is all I'm trying to do is take away the barriers that keep it from expressing itself organically. You are not a static image of perfection. Rather, you are a constant expression of your innate traits. Like water, power slowly erodes rock, but you'll find that you're unstoppable, breaking free from limitations you once thought were unbreakable, not by coercion, but by the gentle, persistent power of organic